Vagus nerve is really the system of communication between the brain and all the other organ systems. So it's part of the central nervous system. It runs from the back of the brain, comes down the side of the neck, and it branches all over the body. It ends mostly in every organ, but the largest bundle of nerves end in your stomach. Which is why when you're nervous, you feel butterflies in your stomach. Which is why when someone punches you in the stomach, like, it takes you out, because it's the real center, the ending of that whole bundle of nerves. So the vagus nerve, before we can understand the ability or the role that it plays, we need to understand what it is. The vagus nerve is basically the system of communication between the brain and all of the rest of the organs and organ systems in the body. It is the conduit, as it were. Now, the vagus nerve runs from the back of your brain at the, what they call the brain stem, and it goes down. It branches into two branches, one on the left side of the neck and one on the right side of the neck. And it now goes and ends or terminates in each organ. The heart, the lungs, the kidneys, everything, the stomach. Now, there is a particularly dense network of nerve endings for the vagus nerve in the stomach, which is why when we're nervous we feel butterflies. It's the vagus nerve, okay? So the vagus nerve, as I explained, carries information from the brain to those organs, instructing them what to do and when to secrete this, when to stop secreting it. When the organs when the vagus nerve ends in the organs, it's also collecting information from the organs and taking it back to the brain, so the brain can decide, okay, we need to increase or decrease this or that. So it's a two-way communication between the brain and the organ system. Now, how does that work where managing stress is concerned? What the vagus nerve will do is regulate. It will regulate just what the organ or the organ system needs to do to down regulate or upregulate whatever is taking place. So, for example, if you're in a situation that's very stressful, for example, a work situation, you'll find that you sometimes have tummy aches, or you'll feel nervous stomach, or you'll have indigestion. Those are the kinds of things. And then the body will say, okay, this person is having stress at work. Okay, so what I need to do is get the stomach to produce more of this chemical to deal with this stress. So you understand that the body is just doing what it needs to do to help you. Okay? So what can we do to manage our stress? React and shift and regulate what it needs to shift and regulate in the moment. So it means that the brain needs to be properly nourished, because if the brain is not properly nourished, the vagus nerve is not going to be as toned, right? And then there are things that you can do to tone your vagus nerve. The main one that I like to tell people, and they're not too happy about, is taking a cold shower in the morning. We're all spoiled. We have hot water and we think this is some blessing in disguise. It's probably one of the most detrimental things that we as modern humans are doing right now. So the key, wake up in the morning, take that cold shower. If you can't manage the cold shower, at least splash cold water on your face. That will help to get that vagus nerve tone. People who like to sing, you will notice that when you sing, you feel so much better. It's because singing or humming or chanting stimulates the vagus nerve, which is right at the back of the throat. So singing or humming. Everybody in Jamaica knows what happens when your grandmother Your great-grandmother used to be upset and you hear her walking through the house humming. That's because she was like toning down her vagus nerve so she don't kill you. So humming also tones your vagus nerve. Another thing that tones your vagus nerve is deep breathing. And this is why we recommend meditation and deep breathing together, because they both work together very well to tone the vagus nerve, which is why people feel so much better when they wake up in the morning, they do deep breathing and they do meditation, because it tones the vagus nerve in preparation for the day. And so another thing that everybody does universally all over the world that we perhaps do not associate with calming or toning the vagus nerve is the act of clasping the hands when we pray. And who knew? So when we're told to pray, it's because when the two energy centers in the middle of the palms meet, the vagus nerve gets toned. So those are things that you can do to tone the vagus nerve and generally create calmness in your body. Tryptophan is the chemical in the brain that tryptophan is the chemical that nourishes the vagus nerve the most. And the foods that you can get tryptophan are like spinach, any of the leafy greens, nuts, and poultry. So it's just good to know that we need to nourish the vagus nerve just like how we nourish our muscles or nourish our, different organs. So it's wonderful to understand how the vagus nerve works and where it is so you can stimulate it. The main things that we can do are the things that are quite unpopular, and I'm going to say it now. The main thing you can do to stimulate your vagus nerve or improve your vagal tone is to take cold showers rather than warm showers. Taking that cold shower stimulates the vagus nerve and increases vagal tone. Okay. The other thing you can do if you absolutely cannot tolerate cold showers is that you can splash cold water on your face in the mornings. Okay. The other thing that you can do, and I like to recommend things that you can do early morning to stimulate your vagus nerve. Okay. That includes things like meditation. Now remember, I explained that the vagus nerve is actually at the base of the brain. So if you stimulate your brain in the morning by meditation, then your vagus nerve is going to get the benefit. Now, the vagus nerve, as I described, is right at the back of the neck. It's behind your vocal cords. So taking deep breaths in the morning, so breath work associated with meditation, also stimulates the vagus nerve. Another thing that you can do is sing. Now, everybody, all those people who love karaoke, you know how good you feel after you go to karaoke. Or if you go to church and you sing a lot, you know how that feels. Some people come back from church feeling absolutely refreshed. It's because of all the singing. You know, when children are acting up and it's singing time, everybody is so happy and so on. It's because, again, the vagus nerve is being stimulated. So you can sing. Singing makes you happy, So the meditation, the deep breathing, that cold shower, all of those things improve vagal nerve or vagal tone. Gargling also, interestingly, that sounds disgusting, but gargling also stimulates the vagus nerve. You have to put the water in your throat and gargle, and there's nothing like a nice gargle in the morning that gets you ready for the day. For the men, I know the men do this more than the women, but that's one of the things that you can do. I don't know if you've ever been to a funeral and people are very sad and very emotional and some of them are hysterical. Just doing this and lightly brushing both sides of the neck can actually calm or stimulate the vagus nerve. So that's just an interesting thing that you can do if you find yourself, hysterical or angry or really stressed out. Just gently stroke two sides of your neck to soothe the vagus nerve. And then the last one that I like to share is the one that is universal all over the world. Everyone in the world does this. They put their hands together, and that calms the vagus nerve down in a big way. So this is why people do this when they're about to pray, or they're praying, or they've finished praying, because it's a beautiful way to just calm the vagus nerve down. So those are things that you can do, and you have these tools at your disposal. The other thing that it's very important to understand also with the vagus nerve, like every other system, is that it needs to be nourished externally as well. And tryptophan is the substance that nourishes the vagus nerve the most. So you need to eat lots of foods that are rich in tryptophan. And you find tryptophan in leafy greens like spinach, callaloo. So, I always like to make that connection between chlorophyll and the sun. So technically all leafy greens are sun food. And for those of you who have listened to me before, I always say the sun is electric. So technically green leafy foods are electric foods. They happen to be alkaline as well. They're filled with chlorophyll. And chlorophyll is the closest thing in nature to hemoglobin. They carry oxygen. So when you eat foods that are what you call sun foods or electric foods, you tend to be able to conduct, bring or carry more oxygen in your blood. So those foods actually bring a lot of oxygen into your body, and they assist your blood in getting stronger. In Jamaica we say your blood's strong. And your blood gets strong when it's higher in iron and it's higher in oxygen. Chlorophyll is rich in iron and is rich in oxygen. So when we eat a lot of chlorophyll laden foods, we end up doing our bodies a whole lot of good, right? Especially people, I like to call the people who live along the tropics, I call us sun people. We are almost like the plants in that our melanin is taking in information from the sun. And so anything that takes in a lot of information from the sun, we're going to get a lot of benefits from it. So even fruits that are sun ripened have greater value to our bodies than foods that have been picked green and allowed to ripen, in the darkness or with chemicals. So always think sun, think of how you can get sun, and think of how you can consume foods that are rich in chlorophyll. So first of all, let's understand what spiritual ascension is. For those people who do not understand spiritual ascension, biblically they spoke about ascension where, when Jesus rose again, he rose up and he went into heaven. And so when people think of ascension, they think of this physical act of going up. But what spiritual ascension is really the raising of your spiritual vibration. And we have had our spiritual vibration in steady state for many, many, many centuries. And so, there are many factors, religious, political, and so on, that have kept us contained by this ceiling. Now, what is happening with spiritual ascension right now is that from a cosmic standpoint, our planet is going through a particular part of the solar system, the universe, that it has never been before. But all indigenous groups have known that it was about to happen. They knew it was going to happen. It was prophesied. And so we are going through a photon belt that is allowing our planet to be bombarded by more light frequencies than we've ever had hitting our planet. It is those light frequencies that's activating not just the planet, but all of us. So it is an external factor that is triggering the spiritual ascension. The light codes coming in are being picked up through our skin, through our auric field, and is creating the awakening that is now taking place. And I think everyone will agree that we are all somehow, some way going through this awakening. So I want to use the words awakening and spiritual ascension interchangeably. So why is it so uncomfortable? It's uncomfortable because our physical body is being affected. Our heart center is being affected. It's being vibrated. Our organs are all being affected. Our brain chemicals are being affected. Everything is being affected. Most people go through this spiritual ascension or awakening process because of a trauma that they've experienced. So all of us are going through this ascension gradually and, going through this process, and then something major happens in our life that I call it the cracking open of our hearts. And we think, when your heart is broken, that's the end. No, when your heart is broken, that's when it can take in more love. All the love that's inside can get to pour out, but something happens. And even though it sounds like an expression to have your heart broken, it's actually a very real phenomenon. And so it is through the grief that we're now able to take in so much more love and energy and realization than we would if our hearts had not broken. There are very, very few people who have just got up one day and they were walking in their perfect life and then they just had this spiritual ascension. No. Usually it is something very traumatic that has to take place. And we all look at life in this way where we think, oh, why did that have to happen to me? This is so painful. Why? But the answer is it had to happen because it's a part of the process of awakening, of going into that other self that you cannot access except through feeling. And so sometimes we have to go through and feel things very deeply through pain to be able to get to that place where we're actually able to feel that we have something else apart from the pretty house and the pretty clothes and the pretty car and the perfect relationship that we have. Those things are very surface, very material. Sometimes you have to have a trauma that makes you feel the other parts of yourself that are there, that sometimes seem to go missing in action because our worlds are so stimulating. It's very stimulating, the exciting parties, the fancy trips, flying all over the world to see the different. We are looking outside and we're not able to look inside. So pain is a part of the process. And I know that sounds uncomfortable to the average person, but I have observed, and I've been observing for years now, and what I've observed is that the true awakening comes through the pain, through the suffering, through the trauma, through the breaking and the healing, the repair process. So there are some people that are having their awakening through mental breakdowns that are not necessarily triggered by a trauma, but just by a life that is uncomfortable and becomes more and more and more uncomfortable until they have this complete breakdown. But what I have found and observed is that those mental breakdowns are actually an opportunity for you to awaken. My advice in that regard may not be a popular one, and I hope that people do not consider it irresponsible of me to say this, but I'm going to say it anyway because I think it needs to be said. If you are in a job and you are not feeling well and you can tell that it is related to the job, then my recommendation is to see how you can find another job, another scenario that allows you to be able to step away from that job. And I can say this because I have personally witnessed people literally get sicker and sicker and sicker every day because they detest their job so much. I've also had the experience years ago of waking up every day and feeling unwell. Not because physically there is anything wrong with me, but because my job was giving me so much emotional distress that it began to manifest physically in my body as feeling unwell. And I know many people will relate to this. If you are well all weekend long and you're out having fun with your friends and you feel great, and then from Sunday night at about 6 p.m. you start to just not feel well, and when you wake up in the morning you feel sick, and the thought of work and going to work makes you feel sick, it is time for you to stop and reassess. Many of us have been programmed to believe, erroneously I'm going to add, that you can't leave your job because you need money. But my position is you can leave your job. You will not die. It will be a little uncomfortable for a little while, but the truth is you will, if you're very, very committed, you will be able to manifest another job just through the thought process alone. We tend to feel as if we're not that powerful person and that we can't literally create our reality, but we can. I remember, and I'm going to share this because I want people to start to adopt this principle. I remember once leaving a job because I was starting to become unwell. And I made a conscious decision that the next job that I get, or the next job that I take, will be on these terms. And I kind of very clearly laid the terms out. The terms are, I get to utilize my creativity, I will not be micromanaged, I will be able to work on my own time to get the job done. Those were the simple prerequisites that I wanted to ensure that I had for the next job that I got. And it turned out that the next job that I got gave me those characteristics. And I know it sounds a little unrealistic, but it is the truth. Our mind, just like our body follows the mind, our reality also follows the mind. So we have to be very clear that if we don't like the job that we have, that there is another job out there that is a perfect fit to what we like, and then start moving towards it. You will be amazed at how easily that job will come into your sphere, into your circle, into your consciousness. Say it to your friends, hey, I don't like my job at the moment. I am looking for XYZ. And someone will be out there saying, hey, this position has come up. I know the perfect person. Okay? So it's better to adopt that attitude that I am going to fix this situation than to stay in the job and continue to fit yourself into it and be uncomfortable. Okay, detoxes are usually never unhealthy. It seems unhealthy to someone who is accustomed to eating large quantities and frequently. So they'll see their friend or their peer doing a detox and they're like, this is crazy. You can't be healthy because you're not eating, and if you don't eat, you're going to die. No such thing. Our ancestors who lived in nature probably had one meal per day, if so much, and they had to engage in a lot of physical activity. They had to walk long distances. They had to be in the sun, in the weather, and their immune system was just fine. In fact, the difference in the health of the most developed countries in the 70s versus now is so dramatic, because food is cheaper and more available, and it's actually being pushed. So people are obese, people are overweight, people are having all sorts of health imbalances. There is no such thing as an unhealthy detox. All detoxes usually benefit the body in a good way, because what a detox is really a cleaning of the house, a cleaning of the temple, right? So whether you do a detox through a fast, which is not eating any food and consuming just water and juices, that's beneficial. Don't let anybody ever tell you that that's not beneficial. The organs get to rest. The cells get to clean themselves and expel the toxins, and the body gets a chance to eliminate. If we keep on piling food into the system, and you're eating up until late in the night, and then in the night you get up and you prepare food and you consume, your organs do not get a chance to rest. And so it's barely always just catching up, just being barely able to eliminate through the colon, a little bit through the bladder, not enough through the skin. And this is why, exercise is so important. But detoxes are always beneficial. How to not shock the body, that's the thing. You have to know where you are. If you have been doing this for a long time, then it's okay for you to go on a 21-day water fast. But if you're new to this, then you can just select one item each month that you'll take a fast from. So you prepare your emotions and your mentals for the act of detoxing or of fasting. So for example, you can say, hey, I'm going to fast, or I'm going to detox my body by not taking in any dairy for the whole week. That's going to be beneficial for the body. Or if you decide, I'm going to detox by not having any sugar for the week, the body is going to be benefiting from that as well. So it can be done in a nice, easy way by just taking some decisions. I would say do some research on what kind of detox you want to do. You can do a fruit detox, you can do a herbal tea detox, you can do a water detox, you can do a vegetable salad detox and vegetable juice detox. The important thing is to get in just enough for the body to be able to live on, so that it can function. Drink lots of water and you'll be fine. All are important. You need sleep, because sleep is when the repair happens. You need to eat good food, because that's what nourishing the body, nourishing the cells, nourishing all the systems and making them work. Because remember, the body is like chemistry and biology. So if the chemistry is not right, the biology is going to be off. And then the last one was right. So working out is important, because you can sleep and you can eat really well, but if you're not working out, then the body is still going to suffer. If you're addressing that question, you would have to recognize that the whole body is a system, multiple systems working synergistically with each other. So you can't have two of those items and not the third, and expect the body to function well. The body can survive with less sleep for a time t, and then there's going to be deterioration. And when there's deterioration in the central nervous system, there's always going to be deterioration in the organs, because the central nervous system, it goes everywhere. it's nourishing all the organs, and it's taking information to and from all the organs. So if it gets tired, it's going to become sluggish, and then the body is going to, not be optimal. So I would say the two most important would be the nutrition and the movement. Sleep is very important, and so the body can do without it for a small time only. They say there is no cure for lost sleep. So the important thing is to always get some sleep. If you're not able to get the 8 hours, get at least 3 or 4, but you must get some sleep. You will not function optimally without sleep. It is impossible. It is impossible. The body can function without food. Or food in small quantities. But the body will not function with no exercise, because then there will be complete atrophy of the muscles. There will be the lack of circulation. Detoxing will be less than optimal, and that is why in space, when they send people out of space, there's a specific regimen for movement to ensure that the body is operating properly. So yes, but my thing would be, you need all three: rest, good nourishment, and movement to function optimally. The advice that I would have is to think about what you're trying to achieve. If you keep your eyes on the prize, you are going to get to that destination. Also, when you're keeping your eyes on the prize, you tend to forget about some of the discomforts. When you're very clear on what your objective is, then you're going to start doing everything around meeting that objective. The first thing I do is start off with like a membership, whether it's a gym membership or a yoga studio membership or something like that, that you have to commit to. You paid to commit to. Usually that's a good way, because when you pay, you're like, I don't want my money to waste, and so you'll be committed to that, even if it's for a month. That's number one. Number two, if you're going to do that, you're going to have to take a decision that everything goes with this. So with the membership, in terms of movement, comes a commitment to buying differently in the supermarket. So it means clearing out the excess junk food out of your closet so you don't have the temptation, and it means buying more consciously, spending more time over in the healthy, the green and fresh produce section than in the packaged section, right? That's one of the biggest things that you can do. The next thing you can do is probably do some research and have some preset menus or meal plans, so that it's easier. You don't open the fridge and say, oh my God, I can't eat this. So the only thing I can eat is this. That's discouraging. So shop with your objective in mind. I remember one time I started a program, and it meant that I was going to have to sweat a lot and spend time, 90 minutes, and I'd be sweating. What did I do? That's when I cut my hair off, and I said, this cost a lot, so if I cut my hair off, there's no cost for this, and I had to, cut back on the pedicure, and I said, this and this, I'm sacrificing, I'm dealing with this, the in-between, like hair and my nails. I'm working on this part, so this is where I'm going to spend the money. I signed up for that thing where I was going to be sweating a lot, and when I went to the supermarket, I automatically saw myself going over to the green section, because I said, after the torture I went through there, I do not intend to lose the gains by eating garbage, because I started to see the difference in how I would function day to day based on what I would put in the day before. So if I had a nice big slice of something cake, the following day it would show up in my practice, and I'd be like, okay, then that cake is really telling. You're going to, if you're doing this right, you're going to be able to see the correlation between what you're putting in and what your output is when you're, exercising or when you're running or whatever you're doing. And that is also going to help you with the discipline. I'd also get some accountability partners in the mix too, to check in and watch what you're going on with, to ensure that everybody is keeping on the straight and narrow where the discipline is concerned. But everything starts in the mind. There's no way that your stomach can rule you. And if that is happening, then you're going to have to do some work on getting your mind strong. Okay, when you have a couple that are together and they have two different eating habits, it just becomes a little bit more difficult, because eating, we have been trained to eat in a social way, in an interactive way, and so there's a lot of association with family and laughter and joy and happiness. So when couples get together, they want to eat together. In fact, there is an old adage that says the way to a man's heart is through his stomach. So women tend to want to feed a man to, get into the mix with them. So it is difficult if one partner has a slightly different diet than the other. It's going to mean extra work in terms of shopping. It's going to be an extra cost, and it's going to be extra work to prepare separate meals. The ideal would be for both persons to eat similar foods, because remember, even though they're separate, they are a unit and they're always interacting with each other. And we all understand that the kinds of food that you eat will determine your temperament, and it will determine the kind of energy that you're going to be giving off and exchanging with your partner. So the ideal is for a couple to be eating similarly. What also happens if one is eating really well and the other one is not eating well, you'll find that there's exchange, even sexual exchange. One person might be acidic and the other person won't be. If you have something like this and there's one down here, what's going to happen? Automatically the other one gets pulled down. That's just the universal law. So the ideal is for people to try to, I think it would be useful to come to some kind of middle ground where that is concerned. Maybe the person who doesn't eat this could eat this, maybe 2 times per week, and sort of a compromise. Yeah, but it can be done. I actually do it. I'm vegetarian. My husband is not. However, he will consume my vegetarian dishes because he knows that it's too exhausting for me to prepare 2 separate dishes. And I, in return, will go and find the foods that he likes, and it's a treat for him, But he knows, he respects, and I also respect his choices. Okay. People don't recognize how sacred sex is. They tend to think it's just something that you do when you come of age and it's enjoyable and it's for having children. It's a lot more than that. And so we have lost Western civilization. I always refer to it as they have lost the true meaning of what the sexual union is. It is a sacred union between the masculine and the feminine principle in order for both to achieve levels of spiritual enlightenment. So that has now been removed, That's a knowledge that has been removed. So we're just basically just operating on the base levels of enjoyment and sensual attachment. Now, when you have sexual intercourse with another person, there is an exchange that surpasses mental, emotional, and physical. That exchange is difficult to quantify, but consider this. If you are in my field, my physical proximity to me, you are going to now be in my auric or energy field, and I in yours. There is going to be a mixing of our energy fields. Our energy fields don't only consist of vibrations, but they also consist of intelligence. They consist of trauma. They consist of emotions, and they consist of karma. So when we mix with someone, we literally are taking on their energetic field. We're taking on their karmic. And when I say karmic, I'm talking about ancestral. I'm talking about lineage, thousands of years of energy. And I'm also talking about ancestral. I hesitate to say this, but I'm going to say it because it's a reality in the spiritual realm. There are ancestral curses that stay with people. They don't know that they're having them. You know, in Jamaica, we'll say, boy, that person's salt. No, it's because they have a lot of heavy karma from their family lineage. It can be cleansed if people are aware of it and then seek to have it addressed. So when you have sexual intercourse, you're having all of that. How do you undo it? That's difficult, because when there is intercourse, there's also a soul tie. So this is why breaking up is so difficult. It's traumatic, it's emotional, because it wasn't just a friendship or a relationship or a sexual interaction. It was actually a soul tie. And so it takes a bit of undoing. The recommendation, therefore, is that you minimize the number of partners just to preserve your energy field and to minimize the amount of clutter and debris of an emotional, spiritual, mental nature that you can be taking in. You know, there's also, I'm going to give a good example. You know how when you go to the fast food store and you go to the soda fountain, you have lemon and you have orange, you have grape, you have Pepsi, and you have, yeah? Some children just go and they just get, is it a good drink? Yeah, it tastes alright. What color is it? It probably is like a murky color. It's okay. It's fine, but it's not the same as having a pure orange soda or pure grape or pure, you know what I mean? It's a fruit punch that is not so nicely melded. So the idea is to keep yourself pure as possible. Keep your energy pure, and to seek a partner that has a similar energetic pattern or imprint as yours. And we've all seen our friends at one time or the other end up with someone that is so divergent, but not in a opposites attract cute kind of way, but in a destructive way, where you can see where one is going to be pulled down energetically by the other. My reference to the ancestral curse kind of thing is this. Have you ever seen a couple get together and everything was fine for one of them, and the minute they got together with the other person, every single thing started to go wrong in their life? in their career, in their health, in their relationships, in every way. Sometimes it's as simple as that particular interaction or those multiple interactions. So we have to take care. And then there's people who will say, oh, I know a lot of people and they have multiple and they're fine. They appear fine in the physical, but in the mental, emotional and spiritual realm they are a mess. And it's important to emphasize here that a lot of the people we see around, and the physical is beautiful and everything is beautiful, and even the financial looks like they are flying on cloud 11. All that glitters is not gold. We don't know what's happening on the inside, and we don't know what's happening at the mental, emotional, spiritual levels. Beginning of the new year. Now, most traditions, most indigenous and ancient civilizations have observed the equinox as the new year. However, the calendars that we have now have it as the third month. Now, in ancient civilizations, they considered the equinox to be around spring. And the equinox, the word equi means equal. What it is the earth has a tilt. It's tilted on its axis and it's going around the sun. There's a particular point where it appears vertical, and the same amount of sun is hitting both the northern hemisphere and the southern hemisphere, and then it continues and it tilts again. So the spring equinox is that time. So we're having equal light hitting both the north and southern hemisphere. Now, it usually is after the winter. The winter, even though we don't have winter, there is still less sun hitting the planet overall, usually, whether it's on the northern or the southern part of the hemisphere of the planet. So the equinox symbolizes for most of the ancient civilizations the return of the sun after an extended period of the sun being away. So it's rebirth, it's awakening, it's the renewing of the sun. In ancient Kemet they referred to it as, the sun, Horus, Osar. Alright, and so it is when he comes back in, right? The equinox also symbolizes the balance between masculine and feminine. And so this whole thing, equinox, is really just balancing in preparation for the rest of the year. From a spiritual standpoint, it's the time of planting, not just seeds, which is in the physical. We plant seeds in the springtime when the earth has now warmed up and is receptive to taking seeds and growing them. But it's also a time of planting seeds in the spirit. So things that you want, things that you are looking forward to achieving, you plant those seeds in the spring, and they will flourish in the summer and bear fruit in winter. So that's the physical significance linked to the spiritual. You notice in the Western Hemisphere we talk about Easter, and we talk about Easter eggs, and we talk about the Easter bunny. It has to do with the egg being, the just before birth. Okay, so that's what the equinox is all about. And so one of the things that we wanted to do was to share with Jamaicans here and in the diaspora that the immune system is what our grandmothers and our great-grandmothers used to take care of. So what are some of the things that you can do right now to boost your immune system? The first thing, remove all fear, remove all sadness, because fear and sadness, believe it or not, messes with your immune system, right? What I recommend in terms of a daily practice is rising early with the sun or before the sun. That's very important. We have forgotten the circadian rhythm, the daily rhythm. We are designed with the daily rhythm in mind, right? But we watch TV until late, or we go party until late, and it messes up. So if you can rise with the sun, right, get outside and take some deep breaths. In other words, do breath work in the air. The morning air is the freshest, coolest version of oxygen that you can get. It has more life force in it than any other time of day. That's number one. Number two, if you can commune or connect with the divine in whatever form you choose, whether it's through prayer or meditation, it is said that just the act of clasping the hands or taking deep breath relaxes the vagus nerve, which runs, it's a nerve which runs like all the way through the body, runs through the chest. It relaxes the vagus nerve, and overall for the rest of the day you are just in a better place. You handle stress better, you process better, you make decisions better, you are sharper, right? So connecting with the divine or going into the silence is so important. A lot of people don't connect that act with the act of boosting the immune system, but those are the kinds of things that get lost with Western medicine. They do not connect those simple acts and rituals that we used to do as a people in the old days to the loss of immune system or immune system compromise, right? The next thing I always recommend is that you drink a cup of water or a glass of water. Some people like to add a little lime juice to it. What that does is that acts as like a little detergent and little internal wash. It also reactivates the stomach juices because the whole body has gone to sleep. The digestive system has shut down. Yeah? So when you get up and you drink a glass of water, that reactivates things. When your digestive system is vigorous and robust, your immune system automatically is also robust, right? The next thing I like to, and this sounds like a lot, but if you can commit to doing it in this order, you will find that you are more vigorous. The next thing, movement. Now, movement means just getting up and walking. Take a quick walk, a vigorous walk, a brisk walk, breathing in the oxygen intentionally. Commune with the divine. You can lump them all into one if you want, yeah? But think of movement not just because the doctor said you should move or movement is good. Think of movement as a means of getting the blood pumping, circulating through your entire body. Not just the blood, because remember the blood is assisted by the heart, but the lymph. The lymph has no heart to pump it and relies on our movement. So when we move, we walk, move those hands as well, because you have some lymph nodes and the lymph system is scattered all over. And the more you move your arms along with your legs is the more it will move and circulate along the breast area. The next thing, a light breakfast of fruit juice. I prefer green juice. Why green juice? Because green juice tends to alkaline the body and it tends to give you all the nourishment you need. Green juice is filled with chlorophyll. Yeah, chlorophyll is the closest thing to hemoglobin. It carries oxygen and our blood needs the oxygen. So if you can have green juice, and light fruits rather than a heavy breakfast that is laden with the proteins and the carbs, then you do so. Your heaviest meal should be lunch, and your next heaviest would be your dinner. Now, it would sound like that's a lot to do, but if you can do just those, your immune system will be so much more vigorous. The other thing that I also like to recommend that people do is go to bed early. Early to bed, early to rise. You know what they say, there's a reason why they said it. They were able to observe very clearly that the persons who followed that rhythm were more successful, their temperament was more balanced, and they were able to achieve a lot more in the day, right? Another thing that I always like to throw into the mix, try to balance the types of food you consume throughout the day. We all like a lot of sweet, it's delicious, and we love salt because that also has a nice little kick to it. But also try to include some sour and some bitter. Why sour and bitter? Because sour and bitter immediately wake up the liver and get the liver going, get the liver more active, and the liver is the workhorse of the body. So if the liver is vibrant and robust, now people will not make the connection between diet and spirituality and anxiety and depression. But our ancestors and Jamaican tradition, they knew if your nerves start take you, that they should go get some soursop leaf and boil it and give you, or you drink it at night time, or some guava leaf, because they are inextricably bound, all of these things. And we need to recognize that we cannot compartmentalize one thing and this and your health is not over here, your mental state is over here, your nutrition is over here, and your relationships are over here. They're all bound. When your liver is not working, you're very angry, you're also very depressed, you're also very sluggish. So many things can happen when your body is filled with toxins, right? If your body is filled with parasites, your temperament is also going to be disturbed, right? I mean, biblically they would refer to the demons, and they always reference the pigs. If you eat a lot of pig, then you're going to get a lot of parasites, and you're going to be filled with parasites. Your vibration is going to be lowered, your vitality is going to be lowered, your mental acumen is going to be lowered, right? So when we think of anxiety and depression, and these things are modern phenomena more so than before, it's because we are disconnected from ourselves. It is because we are disconnected from nature. It is because we are not nourishing our body properly, and it is because we are not detoxing our bodies properly. So how do I propose to look at it? I think I recommend that we take the time to go and immerse in nature. That is the best thing you can do to get rid of your anxiety. Take your shoes off so you can reconnect with the earth, right? We are electromagnetic. The sun is electric, the earth is magnetic. We are electromagnetic. If we don't pray, if we don't meditate, the connection between heaven and earth becomes disconnected. We are the conductor. Think about it. When we pray, and I'm not going to be religious here, I'm being spiritual here. When we pray, prayer is a form of commune with the divine and with nature. And so if you were to do a visualization, when you pray, the light comes into your body through your crown chakra, and it goes through your entire body, and it nourishes you. And then that's a circle. It's almost like, in physics you see the magnet and the flow of energy around it. That's exactly how it is with a human. We're here, the energy flows in, it flows down through our feet into the earth, and it's like that. We also pulling it up from the earth, and it goes around. When that is interrupted or broken, that is when you have the illness. That's when you have depression. That's when you have anxiety. That is when you start to have physical ailments as well. Because one of the things that we emphasize a lot in Wellness Experience Jamaica is that sometimes illness is not necessarily physical, it is energetic. And so all you require is some energy healing. Energy healing is equal to immersion in nature. Go to the river, go to the beach, go out into your lawn and lie down, right? Go up to the top. If you're on a high building, go out on the balcony and breathe in some fresh air. Watch the sunset, watch the sunrise, watch some birds in your garden, right? So those are some things that you can do to shift your energy. You can raise your energy or your vibration also by listening to music, because music is a frequency, it's energy as well. And depression and anxiety sometimes have to do with the brain and one area being overactive or understimulated or undernourished. And so if you can stimulate the brain with some frequencies, and I always tell people, go onto YouTube and type in solfeggio frequencies, type in love frequency, type in frequency for anxiety, type in frequency for depression, type in frequency for sadness, jealousy, any kind of emotion. There is a frequency to assist the brain to come back into equilibrium. Yeah. Another thing that you can do is dance. No, dancing has always been a part of our culture as a people, melanated people. We full of rhythm. So dancing is very much a part of melanated peoples. It is something that we do naturally. We hear the drums. The drums are healing. People don't recognize that drums and rhythm are healing. And just a sidebar, in certain African countries, if any member of the tribe started experiencing signs of mental instability, they would get them out there, they would play the drums, and they have to stamp their feet, stamp, stamp, stamp. If you think about it, that's like you're grounding, you're earthing, you're reconnecting back with Mother Nature and the vibration. So energetically, right, mental illness, anxiety, depression have to do with the energy body being out of balance. So the dancing that we do as Jamaican people and as people of color is part of what keeps us grounded, what keeps us connected. Every ceremonial ritual for every people all over the world involves dancing. It involves sound and it involves dancing, right? So I tell people, listen, if you're feeling depressed or if you feel anxious, turn on some music in your living room and dance, right? If you like reggae, put on the reggae. If you like salsa, put on the salsa. Or whatever it is, put it on and dance, and you will feel better. I mean, some people are going to say, come on, this is chemical and this needs to be medicated. No. Before medication, people handled this kind of thing with ease. They knew what to enhance the nutrition with. They knew what to do to the body to get it back, you know, and so it can be done. Another thing that this might seem far-fetched and unrelated to anxiety and depression, but a simple thing like coming home and taking a bath, a long warm bath in a solution of sea salt, bicarbonate of soda, and Epsom salts can also bring you back into balance, get rid of or release the anxiety, and quell to some extent certain aspects of the depression. No, I still recommend that people go and see a professional or practitioner if it is severe. But if you can incorporate these things into your day, then you will find that those things get diminished. The thought form that you hold also will influence anxiety or depression. Persons who suffer from anxiety and depression dwell a lot in the past or dwell a lot in the future. So they're anxious about the future or they're sad about the past. And so if you can become a little bit more present and just say, listen man, I'm grateful, I'm here, I'm healthy, I'm strong, I have food on the table, I have one little work, although the people them stress me. If you can just look at it and change your thought patterns to one of more gratitude and acceptance, then you are good. And the last one, and it's not the least, it's actually the most significant thing. If you can think of what it is that might be the root cause of your anxiety or your depression, and you can remove the root cause, then I think you'll be in a good place. So if it's a relationship and you can remove it, then by all means go ahead. If it's a job and you can remove it, then by all means try to do so. If it's a living situation and you can change it, then try to do so. But at all times, be looking at how you can figure out what the root cause is. Yeah? And that would be it in terms of anxiety and depression. On another note, there are some mineral and vitamin deficiencies that can cause depression and anxiety. B12 is one of them. So if your B12 is very low, your iron will also be low. And if your iron is low, you're going to be sad, you're going to feel hopeless, you're going to feel weak and helpless. And so sometimes all you need to do is eat some food. Or the number one benefit is to connect with the divine source, God, whatever you may call it. Come back into the oneness. Because what has happened is that we are externally pulled. So we are pulled by the radio, the television, our devices, our relationships, and we leave no time to commune with self. Because within the self is what some people refer to as the higher self. The all-knowing, portions of yourself reside within. And there's only one way to tap into it, and that is in the silence, through meditation. Scientists have also done the research and have found that some of the benefits of meditation include decreased heart rate, decreased blood pressure, decreased anxiety, decreased cravings. There is something that happens when you meditate. The left brain and the right brain, which have two different behaviors and two different set of responsibilities in the body, they integrate during meditation, and it leads to greater cognition, greater problem solving ability, greater awareness overall. So you will be sharper in the boardroom, you will be sharper when it comes to problem solving, and you will be calmer. So a lot of people will tell you the first benefit that they recognize once they start meditating is that they are able to handle stress better, and they're overall much calmer. They don't flare up, they don't angry, right? And it's just because the brain, the right and left brain hemispheres of the brain, once they integrate, there is more neural activity between the two hemispheres, and they release. Remember, the brain, the autonomic nervous system is managed by the brain. When the brain is functioning well, it releases everything that it's supposed to release on time and in the right quantities. When the brain is not working well, there's overproduction of different substances in the body. There is overstimulation of just one part of the brain. Meditation balances out all of those things. And so people will realize that when they meditate, they're able to get a handle on stress, they're able to get a handle on anxiety and depression. To some extent, it may not solve everything. They're able to get a handle on their eating disorders that they may have, and they will find that they're able to go into exercise mode easier. Weight loss and weight gain regulation also can happen through meditation. So many benefits to meditating. Your relationships also improve because you improve. So your reaction is going to be different, and so the outcome is going to be different. When I worked corporate, I was trying to encourage my co-workers to all meditate, because if everyone is meditating and everyone's response is a little bit more managed, then naturally you're going to have better work scenarios in terms of people interacting with each other. So I've only scratched the surface of the benefits of meditation. There are so many. I would like to just mention one last one. There is something that happens when one person meditates. They can shift the vibration in the general area. So you can walk into a space and know that there's someone who lives here that's meditating, because the vibration feels different. So when one person meditates, the vibration shifts. When two persons meditate, there's an exponential benefit in terms of how much the vibration shifts. When you have large groups of people meditating, you can exponentially shift the vibration of the entire locality. And so you can shift probable outcomes, especially if you have a large group of people meditating and focusing on a particular outcome. So if you have people meditating for peace, there will begin the scenario of having more peace in that area. There have been instances when they have introduced meditation into the prisons, and the violence in the prisons subsided significantly. So also when large groups of people in a country are meditating, then violence decreases, illness decreases, and interpersonal relationships improve. So we have an opportunity with meditation to raise the vibration of a collective and improve the situation for the entire collective. So that's an important other reason from a spiritual perspective why people should meditate. Now, plant medicine is something that every single group, no matter what race, culture, have practiced. And so there is credence to all of them. Is every single plant medicine good for every single person? No. And this is where I I don't want to use the word caution. I think that when one decides that they want to try a different plant medicine or a particular plant medicine, they should do the research and think about what it is they have an affinity to. So for example, right now microdosing and mushrooms has become very, trendy. Cannabis in all the different forms has also become trendy, as has ayahuasca. All are seeking the same thing: commune with the divine. In essence, it is a brain chemical that gets triggered or produced when you ingest any of these plant medicine. The same substances are also produced in the brain when you meditate. And so it really is sort of like plant medicines are catalysts for the divine connection, or for the wisdom coming in. So I tell people all the time, this is what I tell people: persons with melanin already have that medicine inside of themselves. And so what you will find is that the unmelanated groups will search more for these plant medicines to trigger what it is that they need to trigger. Think about it. The hippie period had to do with the psychedelics, and everybody was searching for this thing, for that thing, to give them the high, to give them that trip. If you think about it, those tribes from the motherland only used those substances when they were going on a mission to achieve a certain objective for the tribe. So I tell people, or the conclusion that I have come to is that the medicine is inside of me, because I'm melanin rich. And so I meditate, I pray, I feed myself with the right food so that my organs will function well, and that my brain and my organs will be talking to each other. And I will get the same value as someone who uses the plant medicine. I will gain the same wisdom that they will get during that experience. And I have asked a number of my friends, and they explain it as a euphoric feeling that they get. But the thing with euphoria is that it wears off, and then you feel as if you have to go back to repeat that experience. So what I suggest or recommend is that people choose meditation, sound, movement, good nutrition, and good thoughts to bring in that wisdom into their into their being. That wisdom, once it's inside, is yours forever. You tap in and it's yours. You do not have to have an experience to pull that wisdom out, right? So I am not against any of these, because I know for a fact that there was a powerful reason for their use. A lot of it had to do with the dimensions, and so the wise ones, the healers, would sometimes recognize that they would need to travel into another dimension or into time, a different time and space, to bring back the medicine to solve the problem in the now, in the third dimension. And so this goes back again to our conversation about anxiety, depression, and mental illness, because I do not think there is any such thing. What is happening more and more today is that there is the veils between the different dimensions are thinner than they used to be, and so some people are traveling between the dimensions and they are not able to process what goes on in 3D, what goes on in the dream world, and what goes on in 5D or 7D, right? Now think about this. In the past, you would have tribes, and this person would be born with the gift of healing, this person would be born with the gift of prophecy, this one would be born with the gift of changing reality or whatever. Now we're in the modern times. The family lineage of that person, they come with those gifts into this world, and so they're seeing stuff from the past, the present, the future. It helped them when they were in their tribe 200 years ago in the motherland. Now you're in this reality, nobody needs your help anymore, but you have the gifts and you are now supposed to cope in this world, right? You can see spirit, and you can see people aura, and you can see when somebody's sick, and you can see when somebody evil, and there's no place for that. The Western civilization leaves no room for that, and so you feel like you're crazy, but you're not. You just have a gift that's not being utilized, right? So this is what I think needs to be emphasized, and I get so much of that every day. I guess because I operate at a certain vibration, I will attract in people of that vibration, and then they'll explain things to me, and I'm like, oh. Then they have children, and their children are struggling with issues, and I'm like, your child has a spiritual gift. There is no problem. Stop taking them to the psychiatrist, because you just need to talk to them and ask them what they're seeing, and let the spiritual gifts come through without making them feel like, yeah, they had this dream and everything that they dream comes through. Do not fear it. Utilize it. At this stage, you need to get assistance from someone who understands these things. And this is why in our tradition in Jamaica, when people were not well physically, they went to the healer. And when they were not well mentally, they went to the healer. Because guess what? They're all inextricably bound. Your mental health, your physical health, and your energy body. Illness starts in the energy field, I once had an energy practitioner do some work in my hands, and when he pressed, I felt a pain in my little finger, and I kind of felt like something was running here. It felt uncomfortable, and he says, you're having a problem with your heart. And it's like, give me a break. My heart? Just become I went and got my heart checked. Nothing. A year later, they found an issue with my heart. So these things get picked up in the energy field way ahead of time, and if someone is trained in energy healing, they can pick up the problem and solve it in the energy field before it manifests in the physical. Okay, the greatest advice that I can give to someone a Jamaican who lives abroad, who does not have access to roots and herbs is to just think back to what your grandmother or your mother used to give you. Go online and type in that herb, and let me tell you something, it is available online. Amazon has every conceivable herb that exists on the planet, so you can order herbs from Amazon. Now, I just want to say that Jamaica has 80% of the planet's healing herbs, and everybody who is hearing this needs to understand that, you know, Jamaicans not normal. Jamaican herbs are also not normal. They are the most potent version of the herb, and the scientists have tested it. They've tested our turmeric against all the other turmerics, and ours is the most powerful. They've tested our ginger, and the extracts from our Jamaican ginger are just stronger, more potent than all over. So our aloe vera, our sarsaparilla, everything that grows in Jamaica is stronger. So what I'd recommend for people who live abroad, type in Jamaican herbs, and you will get a number of suppliers, Jamaican suppliers, who are currently shipping to the US, to the UK, to Canada. But definitely type it in and you can get the Jamaican herbs. If you cannot get the herbs, and you know, some people may not resonate with the herbs for making tea, you can get the tincture. The tincture, I think, is an easier way of delivering the benefits of the herb. And a tincture is, anybody who grew up in Jamaica in the 50s and 60s will know that every grandmother in Jamaica have a bottle of white rum. It having some ganja in there. My grandmother had a bottle with centipedes in there. So if she buck up a centipede, she chop it up and put it into the rum, and that was an antidote for any kind of sting. So tinctures are usually some alcohol extracting the qualities or the properties of the herb, and so all you need are a few drops in your water daily to be able to get the benefit of that herb. So tinctures, herbal tinctures of whatever herb you recollect that you need. Another point I'd like to make in terms of the herbs is that herbs work better when they're combined. It's just like a herb might be, you know, they say this herb is good for this. Well, it's best if you get another two and put them into the mix. So herbs, believe it or not, and this I cannot prove this, herbs work better in 3s, 5s, 7s, and 9s. So if you're going to combine a herb, do 2, do 3, sorry, not 2, not 4, do 3s, do 5s. So for example, you go with your ginger, your turmeric, add something else, put in some thyme or some peppermint. 3 herbs. If the mind is weak, the body is also going to be weak in terms of how it will manage itself, right? So I think the key to really getting rid of stress eating is to master the mind, and that is by just being aware and being more conscious of what it is that you want. If you set an intention that you are going to master this stress eating, then you're going to go do the research. You're going to go see, okay, what's causing me to stress eat? What do I eat when I stress eat? Okay, those things will not enter my home. If you don't have it, you can't do it. So you have to be more disciplined, more intentional, right? And you have to recognize that you are in charge of you. The ice cream cannot be in charge of you. The chocolates cannot be in charge of you, although chocolates are very powerful. Listen guys, I can say this because I'm a chocoholic, if there's such a thing, and I'm also a snackaholic. So I like salty, crunchy, and I like sweet. No, there's a study that shows that the things that you crave are related to an emotion that you may have, and you express that emotion through the food that you crave. I'm told that people who like salty crunchy have internalized anger that they have to express through eating crunchy salty. So I must have a lot of anger because I love crunchy salty. So I would say to everyone who's having issues with stress eating, go do the research. Why you have that craving for sweet, or you have that craving for cold, or you have that some people eat ice. In the old time days, them say if you eat ice, you have man problem. We now know that, people who are iron deficient sometimes will have the craving for ice. Yeah? So look at the stress eating that you do and do the research on it, because everything is on the internet, and sometimes it may be a little off, but you can find the right answer if you continue to search. You get that mind strong through meditation. Meditation is this phenomena that people think it's some art, like you have to learn gymnastics, or you have to learn how to ride a bicycle, you have to learn how to meditate. No. Meditation is the same thing as contemplation. It is the same thing as introspection. It's the same thing as being in the silence, right? They've made meditation into something fancy. Well, if you want to be fancy, then go on YouTube and type in meditation for this or meditation for that, and perhaps get a guided meditation where they will take you verbally through some visualizations that help to relax you and get you into that place. But meditation really needs to be a personal effort that is done on your own in the silence. There are some meditation groups, so you can type in meditation groups and see if you can find one in your area. At Wellness Experience Jamaica, we have a morning meditation from 5:30. It's a 11-minute meditation, so you have no excuse to say, oh, you don't have time. 11 minutes in the morning is something that everyone can afford, right? So either do it with some aid from YouTube or any other digital device that you might have with music. There's also frequencies that are great for meditating. Crystal bowls are great to meditate to. Flutes are great to meditate to. Shamanic drums are great to meditate to. The sound of the sea or the sound of rain, those are great sounds to meditate to, and those are nature sounds. So when I say immersion in nature is a healing modality, it is the truth, right? So you can use your device, record the sounds of the waves if you go by the sea, and then you can use that when you're doing your meditation. For people trying to get into meditation, the fact that you want to get into meditation, you're halfway there, because it means that you recognize that there is something missing in your life, and that thing that is missing the gap will be filled by the meditation, and that is the truth. So all you really need to do is to find the meditational resource, and you can find that online, and then commit to a consistent practice of meditation. Now I highly recommend morning meditations. Why? Again, it has to do with the circadian rhythm, and also it has to do with how the left and the right brain are working in the morning. Remember, when you are sleeping, you go into different states. There's a state called alpha, and when you just rise in the morning, your brain waves are alpha. And so to go into meditation is very easy, because your brain is already vibrating at that frequency, right? I also must throw in that manifestation, which is a buzzword right now for everyone. manifestation speeds up when you are meditating. And if you set your intentions early in the morning and go into the meditation, the brain becomes just so much more intelligent in terms of helping you to navigate towards your goal. And so it creates things like synchronicity and serendipity, and you find yourself being in the right place at the right time every day if you meditate. Also, when you are meditating, you will find that your vibration is going to raise. And when your vibration raises, there are some people who you are currently interacting with that are going to fall away because you are no longer operating at the same vibrational level. So relationships will sometimes come to an end when you really start meditating. And you'll also find that you will be drawn to or attracted to persons who are vibrating at your level. So there are lots of benefits to meditating. And as I said before, once you want to start meditating, it's very easy for you to find the resources. I remember 20 years ago, it wasn't so easy to find meditation resources. You had to find a meditation group or a meditation teacher. Now we recognize and know that meditation really is silent contemplation and reflection and commune with self. And so that makes it very accessible to you all the time, any time of day or night. I've been trained or participated in several different types of meditation. Some are guided, some have you visualize certain things, so that you go into the stillness quicker. Some have you chant a mantra silently to yourself. Some have you, just be still, right? But all of them ultimately have the same outcome, which is a more powerful connection with yourself and a more powerful connection with the divine or source or God. And what we realize is that women of color have been using these products for perhaps over the last 100 years. And this is such a noxious, strong, vile smell, but yet we are so consumed with our physical beauty that we are willing to put a substance that smells so horrible and so strong on our skin. Now, the research is showing that first of all, your skin is the largest organ on your body, and so the skin allows chemicals to penetrate, and it goes directly into your central nervous system and your bloodstream. So naturally, the scalp, when this chemical goes straight into our bloodstream and into our central nervous system. I'm not sure what the mechanism is, but there is a connection between the brain and the lower dante, where the uterus and the other reproductive organs are. And so what happens is that the messages from the brain and the central nervous system start to get distorted, and signals are being sent, chemicals are being produced in the body, and there's depositing, right? So hardly any of the other races have the large incidence of fibroids and uterine cancer that people of color do have. I know in my case, I never had any issues at all for many years, even though I was creaming my hair. When I cut my hair short, I was using a curl activator. And so because my hair is short, I would go straight on the roots. And I was texturizing my hair more often than I would perhaps cream my hair.
During that time of texturizing my hair, I developed uterine fibroids. They were very small, but they were almost lethal. I was bleeding a lot, and I had to, in the end, 12 years ago, do a full hysterectomy because my entire system seemed to have been destroyed. And I know when everything started was when I cut my hair short and I was texturizing it. So in a 5-year window of just using the chemical so regularly and so close to the scalp, I developed a problem. So I'm in a better position to say this than most people because they might have long hair. They go and get their touch-up every 8 weeks, every 10 weeks, but I was doing mine every 2 weeks after I would get a haircut. So there is definitely a correlation. So my recommendation, of course, is to love yourself as you are. I no longer texturize my hair. I would like to encourage everyone to love their natural hair, their natural coils. That coil is magic. It's a magical spiral. Yeah, it's not linear. People of color, you are a magical spiral. Your hair does it. The way your hair grows is a spiral. Love yourself. Use products that are directly from nature to put on your skin and on your hair and into your body, because there is also a correlation between the food that we're eating and the incidences of fibroids and uterine cancer. The processed food also is not recognized by the body when it's taken in, and so the body just takes stuff and just stores it, and that's what the storage units are cancers and tumors and fibroids and all of those other issues. So we just have to be very mindful of what we put into our body, what we put onto our body. My recommendation, sculpt your mind and your inner self. Field of consciousness, that's a beautiful, beautiful thing that all of us are sitting in, but most of us don't even know or are even aware of. The field of consciousness is basically a field that contains every single piece of information that ever existed in our space, dimensions, and time. We all exist in that field. It's almost like the air we breathe, okay? So that field of consciousness contains consciousness from all space and time. So from all centuries before this and present time. So there's a saying that says energy is neither created nor destroyed. Field of consciousness is the same thing. So all information exists in that field. And because we are all existing in that field, we all have access to it. However, because we do not know about it, we do not know how to tap into it. But I want to just explain to everyone what it is so we can tap into it. So the field of consciousness is this all-knowing, all-encompassing space that we are all here, part of. And our thoughts, we get our thoughts not just from ourselves, but from this field of consciousness. And we contribute to this field of consciousness with our thoughts, which is why it's so important to be selective about what you introduce into your consciousness in terms of what you read, what you watch on TV, what you watch on social media, what you ingest through reading, and the experiences that you have in your reality. All of those things form your personal consciousness, which then presses out into the field of consciousness. So the best example is what took place over the last 2 years. All of us heard about this thing that was coming. All of us feared this thing that was coming. All of us believed in this thing that was coming. And so we created a field of consciousness that actually started to manifest the general thought and consciousness of the mass. So the field of consciousness is not to be toyed with. Think about it. It's, and I'm going to say this, thoughts are electromagnetic. And so when we put them out, they reverberate out into the ether. Now, imagine many people reverberating negative thoughts out into the ethers. This is how you will have a localized community or a localized area where there's a lot of tension, there's a lot of anger, there's a lot of fighting, there's a lot of animosity, there's a lot of rage, and there's a lot of violence. And then you can go into another area where what primary emotions being expressed are love, peace, tranquility, beauty, kindness, compassion. Can you see the difference? So the field of consciousness is controlled by the mass consciousness. And so this is why we as a collective actually have control in our reality. So where this field of consciousness concept is considered, we sometimes feel powerless regarding issues in society that we cannot solve. Take, for example, crime. That's a huge one. We're talking also about black men, because I'm living in Jamaica, so we're talking about our Jamaican men. But in the US, they're talking about black men. And they're saying the system has done this to our men. There are no solutions. We're praying for the men. We do our best for the men. But how about all of us deciding that we are going to place into the field of consciousness for our men, empowering thoughts about our men, empowering visions of our men being the men that we want them to be. Communicate with them the men that we would like to see. And the men that are embodying what we'd like to see, portray that more. Think about that more. Because remember, thoughts are electromagnetic. And so if we think of that kind of male principle, that vision of a male, then that's what we're going to attract into our reality. But what are we doing currently? We're thinking that, oh, men are dogs. They're unfaithful, and some of them are violent, and some of them are worthless, they don't work. And so what do we manifest in our lives? The things that we think about, because we're watching it on social media. We're listening to it in the music. So our field of consciousness becomes a reflection of what we feed our consciousness with. So then what we project out into the field of consciousness is the image that we are feeding. So if we want to change the reality of our men in the field of consciousness, we need to feed our consciousness with the ideals. And so we expect to see the ideals. We surround ourselves with those ideals. And then more and more men will want to emulate those ideals rather than what is happening now, where we see young men wanting to emulate the less than favorable characteristics in masculinity. So that's another way that we can utilize field of consciousness to change the reality that we are all in as a collective. There are a number of planets that revolve around the sun, Earth being the third rock from the sun. There is a planet called Mercury that every planet has a particular set of characteristics and traits. And there is a planet called Mercury who's governed by communication, travel, writing, logistics. Yeah? And so when Mercury as a planet is moving forward, then all of those things run smoothly. Now, there are times when Mercury appears. It doesn't actually go retrograde, but because of how the planetary alignments are and how they're moving and the times of year, because Mercury retrogrades happen perhaps about 4 times, 5 times per year. So when that happens, remember, we are all affected by all the planets, just like we are affected by the moon. When the moon is full, our emotions are full, our water levels are a little higher, the tides are higher, everything is higher. Okay? So it's the same thing with humans and the planets. Yeah, when we have solar flares, it starts to impact us in terms of our consciousness, our psyche, our charge. Mercury now starts to affect every human in this way, where we just become affected in the areas of communication. So there are lots of miscommunications, missed communication and miscommunication, or no communication when we have Mercury retrogrades. With respect to travel is usually just a little bit more tricky. You get the flat tires, you get the flight delays, you get breakdowns of equipment. In fact, Mercury also affects equipment and technology. And so what they say is that equipment is likely to break down, computer crashes are likely, systems are likely to go down. So everything seems to be affected by this Mercury retrograde. So what they recommend is that you make sure that before there is a Mercury retrograde, and it's easy to go online and find out when the Mercury retrogrades are for the entire year, because just like moon cycles or other planetary cycles, there is a schedule. Just like full moons, we know, okay, the full moon is on this date, the new moon is on this date. There are dates for the Mercury retrograde. Go check those out. Yeah. Try as best as you can not to plan too many trips or too many major events or too many major project launches during that period. What they say you can do, because certainly you cannot govern your life by Mercury retrogrades, but what you can do is make sure that you make as many of the preparations as you can prior to the beginning of the Mercury retrograde. People are also, because we're affected, we're also a little bit more tense. We're also a little bit more likely to break contracts and break arrangements that we have made in advance. So the trick is to get those things tidied up, scored away, buy your tickets, buy your equipment, do your servicing before the Mercury retrograde, back up all your files, make sure your systems, your computer systems and backup systems are robust before a Mercury retrograde. Everything gets affected when it comes to the communication, the logistics, the travel, the equipment. Modern day religion. First of all, religion is very rigid in its infrastructure. And modern day youths, young people, are flexible, fluid, buoyant, energetic, curious. And in addition to that, they have access to a whole lot more information than perhaps 300 years ago, where you had no television, no internet. So you would go to church and you would hear whatever the pastor, who is an upstanding citizen, speak about. But now young people are being influenced by so many other things. Yet religion is using the exact same methodology and the same content. So it is difficult, and I feel as if they perhaps have not moved with the time in the way they should. So what is happening, you have young people either totally disengaged or questioning what is being taught. I think there should have been some sort of flexibility around religion to incorporate the changes that have happened societally, technologically, and even health-wise, right? Because things that religion would have been able to explain away with their books, their texts, they're not able to explain those things away anymore. And so the rigidity of the strictures that maintain religion are what are now keeping them behind. I sometimes, and this may offend some, but I sometimes look at the old-fashioned way of presenting religion as analog, and we have moved into digital times, so we have to look at different things. For example, the Bible didn't speak a lot about meditation. They spoke about prayer, caring about quantum physics and law of attraction. Then the religion should be looking at how they can utilize those same concepts to engage the young people in the principles that they are teaching, they are talking about, and so on. So I think perhaps, and when I say digital approach, I don't mean they need to use technology and do Zoom sessions. I mean they need to think about how the body has changed and how people's concept of connecting with God has changed, and how they can utilize those modern perceptions of connecting with God in a way that engages the young people and helps them to go through some of the challenges they're having. So for example, we're having a lot of depression and anxiety now. We're having people with relationship issues now. And so in the Bible and the Quran, there's no adapted methodologies for dealing with these modern day challenges. So it's just about people utilizing the fundamental principles of these books and adapting it to what's happening and really making it engage the young people, so that young people will look to the religions to assist them in navigating the challenges that they're now facing. Again, we need to be mindful of why we want to do something. Trends, I kind of think trends are sometimes dangerous because they encourage you to do things that may not serve you 5 years, 10 years, 20 years down the line. So I encourage everyone, whenever they're considering a trend, even tattoos are trends, right? 20 years ago, tattoos were present, but they were not trendy. Now, every other person has a tattoo. But how will your tattoo look in 20 years? A Brazilian butt lift is something that signifies womanhood and youthful womanhood. So everything is perky, right? But we know that after a certain number of years, our bodies begin to be affected by gravity. Our lines, our faces, all of our bodies. And so here you will be with all of your body going that way, and you have a derriere that is perky. It is no longer relevant to who you are. So in looking at any kind of trend that changes your body, think about whether it's reversible. Can you reverse it? Can you minimize it? Is it adjustable? Right? And as far as I'm aware, Brazilian butt lifts are a permanent procedure that usually only gets redone if there is a fail or a problem. So I just recommend that women just stop and take stock of themselves and work on your inside, work on your emotional state, your mental state, and learning to love and appreciate yourself. I don't say no, don't do a Brazilian butt lift, because there is obviously a reason why the procedure was created. There are women that are not as ample as they would like to be, and I understand. Where, in Jamaica we have a term, wanty, can't get it. Get it, don't want it. It's kind of one of those cases, yeah? But the true thing that we need to be focusing on as women is to love ourselves as we are. Our skin, the texture of our hair, the thickness of our lips, the fullness or skinniness of our bodies. Yeah, because they're all beautiful. The beautiful thing about Jamaica is that Jamaican men will tell you that, yeah man, we just love all women, all colors, sizes, shapes, right? And so this is how we want to encourage our men to also appreciate women, the diversity of beauty, color, texture, size, and the beauty of the mind that resides within that body. That's what we need to be looking at. We've moved away from that. And so, men, I'm also putting some of this on you. When you start to love women's minds and love women's the personality and the soul of the woman, then you're going to find that more women will see the need to go change their external because you are pursuing the external. A lot of the problems that we're having in society today are as a result of people just looking at the physical, right? I'm hearing little video clips of people talking about baby mama problems, and if they'd have known that she was like this, they would have never had a kid with her. But what were they looking at? They were looking at the juicy, the sexy, the curvy, and that's all. So they were coming from the base desires. What did you see? Was it the large, voluptuous breasts, the big booty, her beautiful, perfect face, her long flowing fake hair? Or did you see the beautiful spirit that lay in that woman? Because if you did that, then women would cultivate their spirit and they would cultivate their minds. And men would be looking for women that have taken the time to cultivate their minds and their spirits. And then we would have a lot more harmony. But people are not going for harmony. They're going for a big booty. Right? So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm speaking to you both. Work on the stuff on the inside. Work on your personality. Work on your flaws. Work on your insecurities. Work on your fears, so that you now become a confident, bold person that lives authentically, and you will attract another authentic person who is living truth.
The informative information presented in this video is motivational and is positively aimed at inspiring, educating and entertaining the viewers with the cutting edge of critical reasoning. If you enjoy the contents on the Black Radar YouTube channel, Please consider subscribing to show your support.